Welcome everybody to Tech with Newton, a podcast for technology news, insights, and trends that matter. A podcast where information, factual integrity, and entertainment intersect. I'm your host, Newton. Happy listening. So, before we get started, I want to scream, disclaimer. Yes, this episode is about to get spicy pretty quickly. Hence, I want to make it crystal clear this early on that no part or parts of this episode references in any shape or form an individual, a position, or organization in existence. The content you're about to hear are strictly empirical deductions from my time in the IT field and should be taken as such. Simply put, if the shoe fits, just don't wear it. Now, you may have thought that someone in my position would be a strong advocate for any form of work in the tech space. You may have thought that working in tech is one of the most rewarding and fulfilling endeavors you could ever undertake. And Newton here should be jumping hoops to shove this fact down your throat. And you would be completely justified to think that. However, that does not negate the hard facts that be. Just like any other profession, IT has its ugly challenges, its downsides and pitfalls. The type of challenges seldom spoken about by anyone. The types they don't tell you about until you're already knee-deep in the trenches. I do believe one of the greatest favors you can do for someone embarking on a mission is to first tell them about the challenges and difficulties that lay in wait, even before you shove the benefits and advantages in their face. Because those benefits and perks would mean little to nothing if they don't make it to their destination. On this podcast, we'll always keep it real. Yes, there are undeniable benefits to dedicating your entire working years to grinding in the IT space, and we will certainly be exploring those benefits in a future episode. But in today's episode, we will focus squarely on 12 challenges seldom spoken about that you should know about working and grinding in the IT industry. By sharing this insight, I am not expecting you to give up completely on civilization and go become an expert flute player in the rainforest of Bolivia, but rather the opposite. I am truly vested in seeing you finish the journey you have started. And if you are already halfway there, then this episode should serve as a stark reminder that you are not alone in whatever struggles you're currently going through. Some IT professionals actually have it worse. And adopting a resilient mindset for overcoming the challenges this industry throws at you may very well be the most important skill you should master, even before learning how to print out "Hello World." A challenge discussed is a challenge already half solved. So, without much ado, the very first challenge we will be looking at today is office politics. Yes, I bet no one enters the IT industry expecting to be compelled to pick sides, to campaign, to do some virtue signaling, and all that jazz that comes with general politics. But sadly, sometimes it does happen, and it tends to be more pronounced in larger IT organizations. Office politics is the use of status, authority, and sometimes connections to advance one's own agenda in the workplace, often at the expense of others. Through it is prevalent in the majority of organizations today. However, its prevalence in the IT industry, particularly in corporate IT, is a serious cause for concern, one that I believe is just not talked about enough. It is one of those issues that is often regarded as taboo to even think about in the workplace, much less a topic for discourse, which is quite unfortunate because not talking about the problem, not addressing it properly, or even acknowledging it exists means only one thing: it never gets solved. In corporate IT, the workforce is typically structured in teams. You can look at an IT team as an easily manageable unit, responsible for accomplishing a specific set of tasks. For instance, you could have the server team, the applications team, DevOps team, the front desk team, etc. In IT teams where office politics is permitted to flourish, all semblance of genuineness or integrity is thrown out the window. Typically, there would be some team leader or manager in charge, and over time, an unhealthy game of favoritism gets cultivated in such teams, with each team member playing up to the team leads or managers. The supreme goal of each team member becomes to get on the good book of the manager, to do whatever it takes to get on the winning side, even if that means sacrificing their principles and dignity in the process. The groundwork for office politics is usually laid out and ingrained in employees right at the door during the selection and hiring process, when the hiring team makes all new applicants swear to abide by some vague team player code. At that early stage, a job applicant is made to denounce their individuality and creativity right there at the door. They get convinced it is a thing of shame to be different, so they end up striving to hide their true character for the remainder of the employment. Applicants who would otherwise have enriched a company with diversity of ideas and unique skill sets rarely make it through this filter. And, not to be misunderstood, I am not holding this against any company. I mean, every company is in its right to demand a specific mode for its employees. Cultural fits, they call it. A company is very much in its right to hire an exact specification of human being, even if that means they come with half a brain, if that's what it takes in order to get the job done. There is this line from a movie, I can't really recall, but I think it goes like, we don't pay you to think, we pay you to do. Or something along those lines. Fair enough, but that right there should tell you a lot about the company you're about to get into. And the interviewing process should go both ways. It should be a chance for you to also determine if the company is a right fit for you. Now, once the creatives and individualists have been weeded out the door, the leftovers are then ushered in to foster the herd mentality. A mentality where the ways of working as laid out by the politician in charge or manager in charge never gets questioned, and where members tend to do whatever it takes, even snitching on each other if necessary, just to make it to the inner circle of the politician. All new information for the team, including information on career progression opportunities, is first received and claimed by members of the inner circle, and what is left over is allowed to trickle down to the rest of the team. Any form of legitimate career progression, regardless of how talented you may be, becomes a significant challenge in such corrupt environments, as loyalty gets rewarded over competence. Loyalty to the leadership cult, that is. Integrous team members may be ridiculed for their unwillingness to, figuratively speaking, sell their souls and pledge allegiance to the inner circle. It is not uncommon to find hardworking employees who end up losing their jobs simply for doing the right thing, for being principled and upholding the values of the wider organization over that of the inner circle. So yes, folks, these same despicable things that you can find in general politics also exist and flourish in many reputable IT organizations today. Not every IT CTO you see, or every CEO, or C executive in general, not every one of them got to where they are at the moment on meritocracy alone. Armed with this knowledge, your interviews should always be a two-way thing. During your interviews, you should always be attentive and on the lookout for signs of these corrupt workplace practices. When you detect they are more concerned about how well you follow orders and instructions over how well your skill sets fits the job description, you should respect yourself well enough to thank them for their time, but say no thanks and just walk away. Run away. Moving on. The next challenge we will be looking at is repetitious tasks. Yes, there is never a shortage of monotonous work in the IT industry, and it can become difficult pretty quickly for creatives and thrill seekers to find and maintain stable employment in information technology. And I intentionally avoided making any references to ADHD there. A Korn Ferry poll of nearly 5,000 professionals has proven that boredom is the top reason why many people look for new jobs elsewhere. The excitement of working in IT is usually at its peak in the early days of starting a new job, when there'd be lots of new things to learn, new team members to meet, new challenges to overcome, and so on. But with the passing of time, employees gradually garner experience and perfect particular skills, which on the one side makes them more valuable to their team and to the company at large, but on the other hand, can leave them isolated at the top, tasked with having to do the same thing over and over again, simply because they do it better than anyone else in the company. And in no time, boredom begins to creep in. Interestingly, there are studies that have linked repetitive work not only to psychological stress, but also to what is called musculoskeletal distress, which is just a fancy way of saying your physical body gets a severe beating. According to the Harvard Business Review, and I quote, "Monotonous work can negatively impact mental health, cause us major stress, and ultimately lead to burnout." Dr. Judy Willis, a neurologist, has been quoted as saying, "When we are bored, our judgment, goal-directed planning, risk assessment, focus, and control over our emotions all suffer." So yeah, not only can your mental well-being be compromised by doing the same task all year round, but your physical health can be severely compromised as well. The good news is some IT companies, especially now in 2024, are awakening to this reality and have begun implementing ergonomic measures to reduce workplace discomfort. Some companies, unfortunately not all. Next, we have meeting antics. There is a lot to be said about meetings in corporate IT today. So much productive time gets wasted in the string of endless meetings scheduled on a daily basis within IT organizations. So many corporate professionals today have been led to believe that they have to speak up during meetings. Some have been coached by internet gurus to never miss opportunities during meetings to vocalize their opinions, to strive to contribute to the team, and by doing so, mark their attendance on each call. The expectation is this behavior will be translated into confidence by the other members of the team. And the sad truth is, in corporate IT, it gets quite difficult to differentiate confidence from competence. True, speaking up in meetings has its undeniable perks, I wouldn't deny that, but when every attendee has an opinion that must be shared, when everyone feels the urge to contribute, even when they have absolutely nothing useful to contribute, then meetings get chaotic really quickly and productivity takes a hit. Funny enough, in IT workplaces, it tends to be the 90% of attendees with no tasks or action points to execute who end up speaking the most during meetings, leading the meeting in all and every direction except the one direction that actually leads to a viable solution. The remaining 10% with the necessary skills to actually fix the problem being discussed are often overshadowed and hushed in the background, waiting till the very end of the meeting when they can leave with the action points and sole responsibility for fixing the problem. It takes a great deal of organization and skill to facilitate effective meetings, and sadly, not all IT workplaces are up to the task. Speaking about that, I have recently noticed a relatively new job title called Meeting or Workshop Facilitator, which seems to be gaining popularity across the internet. I'll share my opinion about this on a separate episode. Moving on. Career stagnation. This is one pitfall you can find in many other fields of labor, but its existence in IT is rather unique, and this is due to the disguise and subtle nature in which it exists. Many IT professionals have been stagnant in their IT careers for ages without even knowing it. Experienced professionals are often encouraged to continue working in the same position, performing the same tasks for months on end, for the simple reason that they do the job better than anyone else in the company. The stagnation is often masked with social benefits, discounts, awards and recognitions, etc. It is in the nature of IT companies to spend a significant amount of resources training a select number of professionals into experts. They send them on all paid trips to expensive seminars and workshops, grant them more autonomy and decision-making power in their work, raise their salaries to the highest grade permitted for that job stage, and so on. Now, having invested so much in grooming these professionals for specific roles, the company becomes reluctant to promote or transition these experts to new positions within the company. The company instead tries to keep them motivated by increasing their salaries, work benefits, and coming up with all forms of fanciful titles to trap them in the same dead-end role. Titles like Associate Team Lead, Enhanced Technical Coordinator, Tech Lead 2, and so on. And sometimes even going as far as handing out awards such as Microsoft Excel Employee of the Year or Problem Solver of the Month. Without realizing what's going on, many IT professionals fall for this trick and end up staying at the same level on their IT career ladders for years. Reality only sets in when they find themselves back on the open job market and are compelled to settle for lower wages for their skill sets which are less valuable outside their previous company. The ability to detect career stagnation is a skill in itself. Moving on. The issue of endless changes. IT organizations operate in perpetual loops of process and infrastructural changes. This is particularly true for IT organizations that run a production or service delivery type of business. In corporate IT, if it can be tagged with a business justification, then it is eligible to pass an approval from a change advisory board, and hence it can be changed. Changes are made regularly to almost everything within the organization, from portable software to hardware infrastructures, to processes and ways of working, to even entire teams, which can be changed or swapped overnight as some part of a grand strategic reform agenda, or whatever they choose to label it as. Now, I don't know about you, but the majority of people seek a 9-to-5 job because of the stability and security it promises. These endless changes can become overwhelming for any IT professional, especially for those IT professionals who have been in the company for a long time and have mastered the older processes and tools. These changes require IT professionals to undergo endless circles of upskilling and reskilling with the constant need to prove themselves over and over again to the team. With every new change, their chance of becoming the most experienced and, by business standards, the most valuable player in the team diminishes. This all results in situations where engineers like Linux server administrators, for example, with decades of experience managing applications and servers by typing Linux commands directly into server terminals, are forced to relinquish their expertise and join the rest of the new employees in learning how to use some stylish graphic user interfaces, dragging and dropping features across screens, clicking on colored buttons on some beautifully designed management consoles. And there is never a shortage of new IT graduates, fresh out of university from where they have just learned the latest in technology. They are onboarded, all fired up and eager, and guess what? They are also willing to accept the lower pay just for a chance to prove themselves. Continuous changes within the organization may not negatively impact these new joiners or even the wider organization. However, for the existing, faithful, long-term employees, it would be like having to start a new job all over again every few months. A new job which could come with a completely different job description, one they did not necessarily sign up for years ago when they applied to join the company. They get forced to undergo new training, face the same uncertainty, the same doubt and discomfort, make new mistakes and trigger new high-priority incidents all over again, and having to make new promises to their families and peers that this period of stress and extra work will only last for a short while. But it never does, because as soon as they begin to master the new infrastructure and ways of working, guess what? The company decides to hire a brand new director of strategy with a music degree, and it starts all over again. Did I mention that 9 out of 10 times, IT engineers have no say in whether a change should go ahead or not? Correct. As long as it has been approved by some tech lead, and there is a business justification for it, meaning some management team deems it a necessary part of some grand strategy that will translate to profit for the business, whether it appears to be the worst idea ever. As a mere engineer, you'd have to be there at 9 a.m. prompt to commence the deployment. And guess who needs to come to the rescue and clean up the mess if and when a change flops and causes some critical outages across the organization? That's right, the same IT engineers. And you had better fix it well, and in time too, before the company bleeds out too much cash. Otherwise, you could end up staring potential layoffs in the face. And directors are often the last to be laid off when their strategy fails. So yeah, change is a constant in the IT industry, and the ability to make constant progress in your personal career and goals, in spite of the changing tools you are given to work with, is a skill, one you should master in order to persevere in the field. The next challenge is what I like to call Dream Abattoir, a slaughterhouse for dreams. There are many in 2024 who regard themselves as ambitious entrepreneurs. But that's just before they secure a steady source of income and realize they were just hungry for stability all this time, and it had nothing to do with an entrepreneurial drive. Many dreams have been left by the roadside to rot by former self-proclaimed entrepreneurs who eventually made it to some middle management IT position with decent pay, and then had their dreams of greatness swept away completely by comfort and illusion of job stability. Many fail to realize that work in the IT industry is a gaping abyss that can never be filled. They take up IT jobs expecting to find some free time after work on the weekends to work on their side hustles. But guess what? Without a well-planned strategy in place, your IT job will happily consume all the time you have during and after work. It is not as easy as many would like you to believe that a 9-to-5 IT job will permit you to grow a personal business on the side. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is not impossible because many have done it and are still doing it, but it is not an easy feat either. This is because there is never a shortage of work to be done in IT places, and you may have to end up cheating on your work with your side hustle. There is often a lot to be done in a 9-to-5 IT job, and if you don't learn to ask for help and cultivate a healthy work-life balance for yourself, you will end up burning yourself out or adopting a negative attitude, which can get you fired. Having that naive mentality that you would easily complete your office duties and then switch over to your side business sounds very smooth on paper, but how do you complete a thing that has no ending? Even if, let's say by some stroke of luck, you manage to complete all the work that can be done at a particular point in time, guess what? The company scales. And before you know it, you see in the news that your very own company is launching new branches in some other continent. And IT organizations typically do not consider hiring new employees until they are super convinced their current employees are fully stretched out. Then, and only then, will they kickstart the hiring process, meaning you would have to hang in there a little longer, supporting the entire workload diligently, like Atlas. The lack of time to focus on one's own dreams and side hustles, coupled with the steady inflow of monthly income, guaranteeing one less problem to worry about, has softened the resolve of many so-called ambitious entrepreneurs, transforming them into docile robots, well-fed, with no more desire for adventure or risk-taking. And just to make this clear, I don't believe there is necessarily anything wrong with wanting that for yourself. Many employees, especially adults with dependent families to support, are understandably averse to risk-taking of any sort. Albeit placing your faith in one organization is a huge risk in itself. Just listen to my previous episode on the layoffs so far in 2024 alone. Over 80,000 tech professionals shooed away by the same companies they trusted. Anyway, you get the point. It really does take a unique kind of dreamer, one with clarity of mind and vision, with a solid strategy and resolve to power on through their IT day job, performing and meeting targets, while at the same time building out their own dreams on the side, whatever that dream may be.
Tune in to the next episode for a continuation.